You mentioned Australia before because that was the first place, Stuart, that sort of tried this approach of monetizing these links. Uh, and I believe there was a kind of a general strike, if you will, from Facebook or whomever saying, look, we're not going to link for a while. I think they eventually did reach some sort of settlement.
Yeah.
What does that portend in terms of what's going to happen in Canada, I guess?
Yeah, that is a very interesting one because you can make the case both ways, which is that eventually Facebook did back down, even though they banned news. Part of the reason for that was it was during the pandemic, so people were making the case that we have this really important news that people need to see, and you're banning it. So I think that's a tough situation for Facebook. The other part of this, though, is that once the precedent is set, I mean, when you imagine how many countries there are in the world suffering similar problems with their news industries, and then they see this happening in Australia, they see it happening in Canada, there will be a point where these companies have to draw a line. We had Kevin Chan, who's one of the top guys in Canada for Facebook, basically saying, he was on our podcast, basically saying, this is it. We just have to draw a line here. We have a lot of other stuff on the go, like they're getting into the metaverse and stuff like that. Maybe the Facebook newsfeed isn't the number one priority for them anymore. So I think you could make the case that because they backed down last time, because the PR situation was so bad, maybe they'll do it again, or maybe this will just be part of a negotiation that ends up with both sides finding a compromise. Or you could say, look, at some point, this is going to get in. If this is $330 million in Canada, imagine that in the US
Right.
times 10,
Yeah,
and then in Europe. So that stuff's going to add up over time.
indeed. So I do want to get into the fact that this isn't the only journalism in town, the legacy journalism structure. And the Hub is a good example of that. It's an online publication. You have your podcast and other activities. So that is separate and apart from the Globe and Mail or CTV or what have you. So is there? And I'm assuming you're basically advertising and subscriber based. Is that correct? So how does that
Yeah.
model work? Yeah.
We're primarily charitable.
Okay.
The idea basically is that, as we see it, is there isn't a market case to do the stuff on the scale that the Globe and Mail does anymore, and that's why these people are so desperate for bailouts. But the foundation model is that we have people who really care about journalism paying a bunch of our bills, and it's a good model because it allows us to do things we wouldn't have done otherwise. We have subscribers, we have donations from individual Canadians. We are now getting to the point where advertising dollars can come in, but the trouble with this is that to get to that point, it's pretty hard. One of the stipulations for being one of these registered journalism organizations is you need two full-time employees doing journalism. So it can't be like your accounts person or someone like that. And most startups can't start out that way. It's
Right.
either part-time or they only have one. And you can just see the stifling of innovation happening here because you kind of have to find your way in journalism. It's a tough business. And the idea that these sort of legacy companies are going to get even more money, not just the other bailouts and the other tax credits they get, it's hard to imagine how we actually solve the problem of funding journalism through the market without allowing that kind of innovation to happen.
And I have to ask this question. I'm not trying to be unkind, but just because you're getting a subsidy from this sort of collective bargaining process, as you've called it, doesn't mean that you're going to be in a position to get more clicks or to get more subscribers. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
quality of the content. I suppose you can make the case you can buy that quality now that you've got a business model. But again, 3 years from now, who knows whether Facebook and Google are going to be kings of the hill or whether it's all going to be about your TikTok subscribers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's very true. And you've seen a few millionaires, billionaires get involved in media startups and just get soaked by it because they thought it was easy and they're putting their own money into it. It is a tough business. And this money coming in is not necessarily going to keep money coming in the long term. So the business model thing has to be solved because the short term solution of getting tech companies to pay journalism outlets only lasts as long as the government allows that to happen. So really what we're looking for is solutions. And, I think this process will only stop those solutions from being found.
We're going to take another brief break before our final segment. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.